A king forged in fire. Introduction to Warrior. A king. We remember him best for slaying the giant Goliath. This act of courage made him a hero. But David's story is much more than this single event. It is a story of triumph and tragedy. It is a story of faith and failure. In this essay, we will explore the lesser-known aspects of King David's life. We will journey beyond the familiar narrative. We will discover the man behind the myth. David's life was a tapestry of contradictions. He was a shepherd who became a king. He was a warrior who loved music and poetry. He was a man after God's own heart who committed terrible sins. By examining his lesser-known experiences, we gain a deeper understanding of his character. We see his flaws and his virtues. We witness his struggles and his triumphs. David's story is timeless. It is a story that continues to resonate with us today. His life offers valuable lessons for us all. Lessons about faith, courage, leadership, and the human condition. Join us as we delve into the untold story of King David. The Shepherd's Song: Early Life and Divine Selection. David was born into a humble family in Bethlehem. He was the youngest of 8 sons. As a young boy, David tended his father's sheep. He spent his days in the fields. He protected his flock from predators. It was a solitary life, but it fostered in him a deep connection with nature and with God. Unknown to David, destiny was calling. The prophet Samuel was sent by God to Bethlehem. His mission was to anoint the next king of Israel. God had rejected Saul, the current king. Samuel was led to Jesse, David's father. One by one, Samuel met Jesse's sons, but none of them were the chosen one. Finally, Samuel asked, "Are these all the sons you have?" Jesse replied, "There is still the youngest. He is tending the sheep." Samuel insisted on seeing the young shepherd. David was summoned from the fields. He was a handsome youth with a bright countenance. The moment he arrived, God spoke to Samuel, "Rise and anoint him. This is the one." Samuel took the horn of oil. He anointed David in the presence of his brothers. The Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. His life would never be the same.
The sun beat down on the valley of Elah. 2 armies faced each other, tense and ready for battle. The Israelites, God's chosen people, trembled with fear. Their enemy, the Philistines, boasted a mighty warrior in their ranks. His name was Goliath. Goliath was a giant among men. Towering over 9 feet tall, he wore thick armor and carried weapons that gleamed in the sun. The sight of him sent shivers down the spines of even the bravest Israelite soldiers. The fate of their nation hung in the balance. Every morning and every evening for 40 long days, Goliath strode out into the valley. His voice boomed across the battlefield, challenging the Israelites to send a champion to fight him.
"Choose a man to fight me. If he manages to kill me, we Philistines will be your slaves."
His words echoed across the valley, striking fear into the hearts of the Israelite soldiers. King Saul, their leader, was a head taller than any other man, but even he cowered at the thought of facing Goliath. The Israelites felt utterly helpless. Far away from the battlefield, a young shepherd named David tended his father's sheep. David was a brave and resourceful boy, skilled with his sling and devoted to God. One day, David's father sent him to the Israelite camp with food for his brothers, who were soldiers in Saul's army.
"David, take this food to your brothers and see how they are doing."
As David approached the camp, he heard Goliath's booming challenge. He was surprised to see the Israelite army cowering in fear. David couldn't understand why they were so afraid. He believed in the power of God, and he knew that with God on their side, they had nothing to fear. David's words spread quickly through the camp. Soon they reached the ears of King Saul. Intrigued, Saul summoned the young shepherd. David stood before the king, his eyes shining with confidence.
"Your Majesty, I will go and fight this Philistine giant."
Saul was astonished.
"You're just a boy, and this man has been a warrior all his life."
But David stood firm.
"The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine."
His faith in God was unshakable. King Saul, impressed by David's courage, offered him his own armor, but the armor was too heavy and cumbersome for David. He took only his shepherd's staff, his sling, and 5 smooth stones from the brook. With God in his heart and a sling in his hand, David approached the battlefield.
Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?
Goliath, towering over David, laughed in scorn. He cursed David by his gods and threatened to feed his flesh to the birds. But David stood his ground, his faith unwavering. With a swift motion, David loaded a stone into his sling and hurled it with all his might. The stone found its mark, sinking into Goliath's forehead. The giant stumbled and fell, crashing to the ground like a mighty oak felled by a storm. The Philistines, witnessing their champion's defeat, panicked and fled. The Israelites, emboldened by David's victory, surged forward, chasing their enemies and securing a resounding victory. David, the young shepherd boy, had become a national hero. The story of David and Goliath is a timeless testament to the power of faith and courage. David, though small and seemingly insignificant, faced a formidable giant with unwavering faith in God. He refused to be intimidated by size or strength, knowing that with God on his side, even the impossible was possible. David's story teaches us that true strength comes not from physical might, but from the courage of our convictions. It reminds us that even in the face of overwhelming odds, faith and determination can overcome any obstacle. Like David, we can all find the strength to face our own giants, knowing that with God as our guide, victory is always within reach.
A bond unbreakable. The powerful friendship of David and Jonathan. David's anointing was a secret. He returned to his life as a shepherd. However, his destiny soon intertwined with the royal court. David's fame spread when he defeated the giant Goliath. This victory brought him to the attention of King Saul. David entered Saul's service. He became a skilled warrior and musician. It was at the royal court that David met Jonathan, Saul's son. Jonathan was a courageous warrior and a noble prince. A deep friendship blossomed between the two young men. Their bond was immediate and profound. They shared a love for God, a passion for justice, and a loyalty to one another that transcended even family ties. Jonathan recognized David's anointing. He knew that David was destined to be king. Despite this, Jonathan never wavered in his friendship. He supported David, even when it meant defying his own father. Their bond serves as a testament to the power of true friendship. It demonstrates that love and loyalty can thrive even in the face of adversity. The wilderness, years' lessons learned in the shadow of the throne. King Saul grew envious of David's popularity and success. He saw David as a threat to his throne. Saul plotted to kill David. Jonathan warned David of his father's intentions. David was forced to flee for his life. He spent years as a fugitive, hiding in caves and deserts. These wilderness years were a time of great hardship for David. He was constantly on the run, hunted by Saul's men. These years when he experienced betrayal and loss. Yet it was during this time that David's faith and character were tested and refined. He learned valuable lessons about leadership, patience, and reliance on God. David's experiences as a fugitive shaped his reign as king. He knew firsthand the plight of the oppressed. He understood the importance of justice and mercy. The wilderness years may have been a time of hardship, but they were also a time of tremendous growth for David. He emerged from this period a stronger and more compassionate leader. He was ready to assume the mantle of kingship.